They say 70% of software projects fail before ever reaching the end user. But in the world of health tech, a failure isn't just a lost investment. It's a potential compliance nightmare. Today, we learn how to build for the exit while keeping security at the core. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the HIPAA Insider Show, where we're here to demystify technology related to HIPAA compliance and make it accessible for every company, not just the largest enterprises, but the smaller startups as well. Before we jump in, please remember to like and subscribe to our channel. If you've already subscribed, thank you very much. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. So if you haven't yet subscribed, and that's 90% of our audience, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Joining me today is Ghazenfer Mansoor. Ghazenfer is the founder of technology Rivers and a specialist in HIPAA-compliant health tech and AI-powered SaaS solutions. Ghazenfer, it's great to have you here. Here we go. Hey, Ghazenfer. Nice to have you here.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Yeah, I've been checking out a lot of your stuff on LinkedIn and on your website, and yeah, very interested to talk to someone like-minded in a similar space to what HIPAA Vault do.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so Ghazenfer, you've led the build of like over 50, 60 applications at this point, right? And you've become a trusted partner for health tech entrepreneurs. But every innovator has a starting point. So I'd love to share for you to share a little bit about your background, how did you first get into software engineering and the other services that you offer, and what led you to found Technology Rivers.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is computer science. I grew up in Pakistan, moved to United States in '99, and since then worked with different companies, two companies as an early engineer. And then I started some consulting work in 2004, then built a recruitment software startup. And then 2015, I started this business. While I was doing consulting, I also worked at Veterans Health. And so I was somewhat in a healthcare space as well, more development. During my startup, I learned a lot about the product development. That's when we saw the opportunity to help building product for startups to build the first time. Our second customer was with health tech, and that's how we got into more and more health tech. So along the way, we did some work for the startups funded by Johns Hopkins. That's where we learned HIPAA, and then we gradually doing more and more HIPAA compliant. So as of today, in 11 years, we have built over close to 120 to 130 total applications, and out of that, over 50 are healthcare applications. But in general, like we did a lot more before moving into more and more healthcare. So over 50 healthcare, and out of those, 50% of those are HIPAA compliant. That includes web and mobile.
Wow, that's an amazing achievement. Well, let's talk a little bit about why software projects fail, because you've had a lot of software projects under your belt, and statistics seem to show that a large majority of them, over 70% of software projects, never make it to production. And you've been called in a lot of the time to rescue projects that are deemed sinking ships. So from your perspective, why does this happen so frequently in health tech? And what's the first step you take to get a failing project back on track?
Close to 50% of the work is fixing those broken projects. So customers come to us, they either have an internal team or they work with somebody building these different products, and a variety of reasons. Some are working for over a year, 2 years, never been able to launch. You're right. A large number of those projects do not go to the production. It's the fear or whatever. In some cases, it's the quality. I mean, many times, obviously, the founder is not comfortable. That's why those projects are not going to production. They're not working one way or other. So I think the biggest reason, I would say, among many other, is really the clarity of what needs to be built, the requirement, the ownership, like all these things do make a difference. In a healthcare world, the compliance part, yeah, that seems like it, but that needs to be embedded in the application. You can't add that later on, or if you add it, it adds a different complexity. But just not knowing, just getting into the weeds directly without really planning. So the strategy is important. What needs to be built, how, that plan is very important. So the very first step we do is do the assessment. So we have a process where we really dig deeper in the whole application, figure out what are the issues, where are the gaps on the user experience side, on the quality, on the UI side, any Trojan cord, like whatever. So we have a deep that generates a big 50, 60 page report that look at every aspect of those apps. That gives us the good insight about, and then a plan to build to correct that. In many cases, it's fixable. In some cases, you may have to redo it. In some cases, it's just maybe a different component that you need to build. It really depends on the specific, what the customers are trying to achieve.
Yeah, most definitely. I think in healthcare, what we find is that a lot of healthcare founders, healthcare tech founders, are visionaries. They do have a vision for what is going to bring a better patient outcome from the technology, but they often lack the cybersecurity skills, the technical know-how in coding, and they don't need to know all of that stuff, the cybersecurity and the coding, but they do need to have the right people in place to help out with. So you're very well versed in that. From our side, HIPAA Vault, we handle secure infrastructure, cloud storage, so like the walls of the house, so to speak. But you're like an architect of the software inside those walls. In your mind, what actually goes into HIPAA compliant coding? If you could speak a little bit to like beyond just having a secure server, what do developers and software architects need to do at the code level to ensure security and compliance with HIPAA?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously the infrastructure is important, but it's just the foundation. It's a one piece of the HIPAA.
Right.
The bigger part in building the HIPAA compliant application is really how you code it. It starts with obviously looking at the core foundational aspect of the HIPAA: authentication, authorization, who access what data, what time. So that means as your application is being built, there are flows that you're coding. Those need to be tracked as well. So, for example, like you're adding, let's say, authentication. Is it automatically timing out after certain time? You're logging out. How the data is stored when it comes to mobile, like on the devices, because you could lose those devices as well. The encryption, you have to make sure the data is being stored on the browser, in the app, on the server, during transit, all encrypted. And the bigger piece is the audit logging. Who accessed what data, what time? And as you're building these applications, you see like you have a list of patients that has a PHI data. Let's say somebody looked at that list is one view, but if you click on it and then you look at more specific detail about that patient, maybe the medicine, the prescriptions, the labs, anything. So that's more specific. But what information was viewed, tracking all of that is important. In HIPAA, there's no data is deleted. Every time it's deleted or viewed, it needs to be tracked. There's a history. So you need to track all of that. But more importantly, be able to even access that later on. So I think those are the things that are very important in building these HIPAA compliant applications.
Yeah, most definitely a key point there with the audit trails. You know, you don't get fined typically for a breach of data. It's what you had in place to prevent the breach and what you did after the breach that really counts. So audit trails are key to figuring out, monitoring to figure out if the breach has happened, and then audit trails to see how it happened and how to correct it. So yeah, I definitely agree with you 100%.
I mean, there are different ways I've seen even like people handle at the infrastructure level as well. Let's say you add those interceptor at the API level. You can technically fulfilling the requirement that yes, you are tracking every call, who did what. But in reality, when you start getting to report, extract that, then you have to get a meaningful data. And that's where it comes in. Who look at, let's say, a view data only versus who look at the detail. And because on a UI, you may not have let's say, it never scrolled to the bottom of the page. You only saw the top portion. So technically, you're only storing these 5 patient data was visible, things like that. So you can go more granular on that, because the more accurate tracking you're doing, the better results you will have. And especially when it comes to views or deleting any of those. So that's important. So on that note, we do have a HIPAA checklist that we put together for creating HIPAA-compliant mobile apps and HIPAA-compliant web applications. Those are the steps that you have to follow when you're creating a new web or mobile app. And that's on a website. We can share the link afterwards.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, we'll definitely leave a link in the description below. And it's an easy one, technologyrivers.com.
That is correct.
Yeah, okay. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, and link in the description below. So yeah, you touched on a core aspect of your service, which is mobile. And obviously that has been an ever increasing segment of usage, especially with younger users. I'd like to talk a little bit about prepping for 10x profitable exits when it comes to building an application and then it being purchased. And it strikes me that mobile is a core part of that. But could you talk about what are some technical and also compliance must-haves that are needed for owners to implement today to be attractive to buyers in the future?
Yeah. So in today's world, where with AI, obviously the tech it's pretty easy or faster to develop. I think the real differentiation comes in how your workflows and processes are implemented. When we come in, we said, okay, you need to also build a proprietary tech that can 10x. So no matter what business you are in, whether it's lawn mowing, it's a mechanic shop, whatever business you are in, or like in healthcare, obviously, whether you're a provider or a hospital or any business that you are in, what is the difference between you and your competitor? You are, is it a better service, better sale, more people? Like all of those factors are not going to be as important because your competitor can catch up. What makes a difference is a technology, the efficiency that you bring in your processes, how quickly you allow your customers, your patients, to request and receive a service from you. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where the automation of those workflows makes a huge difference. So as you create those flows, that will bring more efficiency into your business, and that means increasing more revenue, more profit, and that will increase your value. So focusing on automating these processes is the key in getting the 10x value.
And most definitely. And you touched on AI there at the start. And we're heading into a period where AI is becoming almost, in some cases, invisible in the software stack, but it's mission critical. Beyond just the hype of AI and LLMs and things like that, what does real AI integration look like for a HIPAA covered entity, and how do you balance massive data processing requirements with the strict privacy requirements of HIPAA?
Yeah, that's a very interesting and important topic, because in healthcare, obviously with the PHI data, everybody's reluctant to use AI, and there's a lot of hype in the AI as well, like in terms of how to use the AI. So there are certain processes, certain ways of using AI in the healthcare environment to make it more compliant. So I'll share a few. So for example, if you're building any healthcare application where you have that sensitive PHI data, you want to make sure that that data is not shared with any of those cloud LLMs to be used for training. So the number one step you do is have those vendors sign BAs, so which is a business associate agreement. So as in our company, we work with multiple LLMs and we had them sign. So once OpenAI or Google or any of those LLM companies, they are signing BAs, they're committing to zero data retention policy. They're committing to not using the data for training the LLMs in compliance. So any vendor that touches your PHR data should sign BA. That's number one. Number two, there are different architectural considerations that you have to do in order to make those compliant. So for example, there's a concept called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. This is where you take your data and convert it into chunks and give it to the vector database. So you store that data into, so obviously you use LLM to create those chunks in putting into vector database. And as you're querying that big data, you basically do the search based off of those vector database and then give it to LLMs for optimizing and for giving you the results. So rather than just throwing the whole data into the LLM, you are now using the vector database to store and retrieve data. Once that data is filtered and limited data, then you use AI to optimize the results. So these are the strategies that you have to follow in terms of building any application that have a sensitive internal data. And that's very common in the regulated industries, including in healthcare. So for all the HIPAA applications that we are building, we are following the RAG architecture.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I assume that the RAG also helps a lot with the security side, the efficiency side of things, as well as the security side of things. So at HIPAA Vault, we see companies that view the compliance portion of the project as a hurdle. However, you argue that it's a pillar of the innovation and a key to scaling. So how does having a robust compliance infrastructure actually help a healthcare startup to scale faster rather than to slow them down and just be ahead?
Yeah, I think it's a similarity as we talk about in general processes that, processes make things slow. But in reality, compliance only slows you down when it's bolted on late. But when compliance is designed into your workflows early, it actually accelerates the scale. So, I mean, your teams move faster because the guardrails are clear. They are not really building, experimenting, and then redoing it. So the challenge is when you add HIPAA or compliance, any compliance later on, that means how you designed your system is going to change. So technically, you're redoing a lot of work. So it would make it more slower if you're adding the compliance later. But when you're adding the compliance earlier, you're making fewer mistakes. You have a fewer rework, and then you have a fewer fire drills. So, I mean, that's where we believe that building, having a compliance from the day one does make a difference. And it goes back to the same thing we talked earlier in terms of why project fails. Because if you talk about those things later on, that's where the challenges comes in. It's like you build a house and now you realize, you need to add a new door or a basement. It's going to be a lot of rework. So knowing the strategy up front, you have to have a right plan, what things will go where. We talked about the audit log when it comes to building application. Imagine your database design is changed. What actions do you do when you have, when somebody view the data, somebody delete the data or added the data, right? So there are actions that needs to happen. Suddenly, you can't just change the database or change your code to automatically have those things start happening. So those need to be as part of your development plan, your system design, your architecture, everything. So yeah, so in healthcare, definitely compliance from day one is important. And obviously in healthcare, the trust is also the key. And when the compliance is added into the system from day one, it adds trust. with your clients, with your partners, with your buyers. And that shortens your sales cycles, and that reduces your risk. So in reality, it's not the blocker, it's your growth lever. Because I mean, how many like as we are building these applications, many times what we notice, like even your application does not have any PHI. If you try to sell it to any hospital system, any providers, this is always the first question: is it HIPAA compliant? And the moment you say it's not, the reluctance, even though you're clearly saying there's no PHI data, but somehow the user automatically step back when they see it's not HIPAA compliant. So we recommend you need to have application HIPAA compliant, irrespective of whether you have a borderline PHI or not. Like when I say borderline, it could be user ID, right? Something like that. Yeah, it's not really a PHI, but it technically could be argued. So
yeah, gray area. Yeah, no, definitely. And I think we had a guest on last episode. You've had him on as well, Larry Trotter the second, and we were talking about those security questionnaires, and definitely if you're not ready to answer those security questionnaires and have a process for that, then that's going to be, like you said, a big stumbling block when it comes to proposing these to covered entities. And yeah, so that just definitely goes along with having a HIPAA compliant infrastructure as not being a hurdle. Ghazenfer, this has been a great a deep dive, but I think that you can, our viewers can probably do a deeper dive. And I know that you've got an upcoming book, so tell us a little bit about that, and then also tell us how viewers can follow you and learn more about your approach.
My book is about the mobile app growth strategies beyond the download, how to build mobile apps that people love, use, and share every day. It does have a chapter on AI healthcare as well. There are 30 plus chapters where we talk about the mobile app growth strategies. After this book, I have another one in the works, which is more on the healthcare and AI. Don't have a timeline for that second book, but beyond the download is going to be released anytime.
Fantastic. Yeah, beyond the download, check it out. And that's, if I understand correctly, is that available through your website?
It will be. It's with the publisher. We already have a Kindle version, but yeah, it will be through Amazon as well as through the website as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, and we'll leave a link in the description there. So, well, thank you very much for joining us today. And to our audience, if you're looking for a partner to help host your next big health tech innovation, visit us at HIPAAvault.com. You can also check out more episodes on the HIPAA Insider Show YouTube channel. We make the cloud compliant so you can focus on your business. See you next week.